What would you say if you knew you had only moments left? Final words reveal everything. Most people waste their last breath on regret. But history's greatest minds, they used theirs to deliver one final message to humanity. Some were cryptic warnings. Others were confessions of lifelong secrets. A few were so disturbing that witnesses refused to repeat them for decades. These were not ordinary deaths. These were the final acts of geniuses who changed our world. And what they said in those last moments tells us more about life than anything they achieved. Tonight, we decode the final words of 10 brilliant minds. From the physicist who apologized to the universe, to the inventor who died with a secret that could have changed everything. The last words of a great man are like the last rays of the sun. Their lives were extraordinary, but their deaths reveal the truth they spent a lifetime discovering. Einstein's apology, April 18, 1955. Princeton Hospital. Albert Einstein, the man who unlocked the secrets of the universe, lay dying. A blood vessel near his heart had ruptured. Doctors offered surgery, but Einstein refused. "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially." He had one final night, and in those hours he spoke his last words to the night nurse. The problem, she only spoke English. Einstein spoke German. Lost. Whatever Einstein said in his final moments was never understood, never recorded, gone forever. But here's what we do know. In his final years, Einstein was consumed by regret. He had written a letter to President Roosevelt recommending the development of atomic weapons. That letter led to Hiroshima, Nagasaki, over 200,000 dead. Einstein spent his last decade campaigning against nuclear weapons. "I made one great mistake in my life," he once said, referring to that letter. Did his final words contain an apology, a warning, a mathematical revelation he never wrote down? We will never know. But the universe kept his last secret. Tesla's final secret. January 7, 1943. Room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. Nikola Tesla, the man who invented the 20th century, died alone. No family, no friends, just pigeons at his window. Alone in the dark. For 3 days nobody knew he was dead. The maid found him because he had failed to hang the "Do Not Disturb" sign. But here's where it gets strange. Within hours of his death, FBI agents arrived. They seized all of Tesla's papers, his notes, his designs, everything. Classified, top secret, national security. Why would the government care about an elderly inventor's papers? Because Tesla claimed he had developed something terrifying. A death ray. A weapon that could destroy 10,000 aircraft from 200 miles away. "I have harnessed the cosmic rays and caused them to operate a motive device." His final years were spent trying to sell this invention to the military. Nobody believed him. But when he died, suddenly everyone wanted those papers. His secrets died with him in that cold hotel room. Or did they? To this day, some of Tesla's papers remain classified. What did he know? And speaking of inventors who knew too much, Darwin's confession. For decades, a rumor circulated through religious communities. On his deathbed, Charles Darwin renounced evolution. He returned to Christianity. He admitted his life's work was a lie. False. This story was fabricated by a woman named Lady Hope, who claimed to have visited Darwin in his final days. Darwin's family denied she was ever there. His daughter Henrietta was furious. "I was present at his deathbed." Lady Hope was not present during his last illness. So what did Darwin actually say? His real last words were to his wife Emma. "I am not the least afraid of death." But here's what makes this fascinating. Darwin did struggle with his theory, not scientifically, emotionally. His beloved daughter Annie died at age 10. Darwin was devastated. That loss shattered whatever faith remained in him. He never published during Annie's lifetime out of respect for Emma's religious beliefs. Death took his faith. When Darwin finally died in 1882, he faced his end with the same scientific acceptance he had applied to all of nature. No fear, no regret, just observation. But not everyone faces death so calmly. Voltaire's defiance, May 1778. Paris. Voltaire, the most dangerous writer in Europe, lay dying. The Catholic Church saw an opportunity. If they could get Voltaire to repent on his deathbed, it would be a massive victory. They sent a priest to his room, renounced Satan and all his works. Voltaire's response has echoed through history. Now is not the time to make new enemies. Defiant, even at death's door, Voltaire couldn't resist one final joke at the church's expense. But his actual last words were even more fitting. When the candle beside his bed flared up, Voltaire opened his eyes and said, "What, the flames already?" He was joking about going to hell. His entire life, Voltaire had attacked religious hypocrisy. He had been imprisoned, exiled, his books burned. They tried to silence him. And with his dying breath, he was still laughing at them. The church refused to give him a proper burial. His friends had to smuggle his body out of Paris dressed as a living man. But here's the irony. Today, Voltaire lies in the Pantheon. The church that rejected him, it lost that battle. Speaking of battles with the church, Galileo's whisper, 1633, Rome. Galileo Galilei kneels before the Inquisition. He has been forced to deny the truth. The earth does not move around the sun, he says. Heliocentrism is false. I abjure, curse, and detest my errors. But legend says that, as he rose from his knees, Galileo whispered something under his breath. And yet it moves. Epor si muove. Did he actually say it? Historians debate this. There is no contemporary record. The phrase first appears over a century later. Sometimes the myth reveals more truth than the facts. What we know for certain is this. Galileo spent the last 9 years of his life under house arrest, blind, broken, but still working. His final book, written in secret and smuggled out of Italy, laid the foundations for Newton's physics. They could imprison his body, but not his mind. When Galileo died in 1642, the church forbade any monument to his memory. It took them 350 years to formally apologize. In 1992, the truth has a way of surviving those who try to suppress it. And speaking of suppressed truths, Socrates' last dead, 399 BC, Athens. Socrates has been sentenced to death for corrupting the youth. His crime? Asking too many questions, teaching people to think for themselves. Questions are dangerous weapons. His friends begged him to escape. They had bribed the guards. A ship was waiting, but Socrates refused. I would rather die having spoken after my manner than speak in your manner and live. He drank the hemlock himself. As the poison crept through his body, numbing his legs, then his stomach, Socrates covered his face. His friends wept. Then suddenly he uncovered his face one last time. Credo, I owe a rooster to Asclepius. Will you remember to pay the debt? Asclepius was the god of healing. Why would a dying man think of a rooster? Scholars have debated this for 2,000 years. Was death the ultimate healing? Was life itself a sickness that death cures? Or was Socrates simply reminding us that even in death, we must honor our obligations? Mystery. The wisest man in Athens died with a riddle on his lips. But not all geniuses face death so peacefully. Newton's humility. Isaac Newton was not a humble man. He destroyed rivals. He held grudges for decades. He once tried to erase Robert Hooke from history entirely. Pride was his shadow. But on his deathbed in 1727, something changed. Newton, the man who had unlocked gravity, calculus, and the nature of light, said something unexpected. I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore. He continued, finding a smoother pebble, while the great ocean of truth lay undiscovered before me. This from the man who literally wrote the laws of physics. Perhaps facing death changes perspective. Perhaps Newton finally understood that all his discoveries were just pebbles on an infinite beach. All his genius was nothing compared to what remained unknown. Newton died rich, famous, knighted, but in the end he saw himself as a child who had barely begun to understand. His last documented words were simpler. He said he had never violated a woman. A strange final thought. Strange, but Newton had always been strange. A genius who lived almost entirely inside his own mind. Speaking of minds that operated differently, Da Vinci's regret. Leonardo da Vinci was perhaps the greatest genius who ever lived. Painter, sculptor, engineer, anatomist, inventor, he could do anything. Master of all things. But on May 2, 1519, as he lay dying in France, Leonardo said something that should make every one of us uncomfortable. I have offended God and mankind, because my work did not reach the quality it should have. What? The man who painted the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. The man who designed flying machines 400 years before the Wright brothers. He died believing he had failed. Think about that. Even geniuses die feeling they could have done more. Leonardo left thousands of pages of notes. Designs for inventions that would not be built for centuries. Paintings he never finished. Ideas he never pursued. So much potential left unrealized. He had all the talent in the world. But even he could not escape the universal human experience, running out of time. Is that what awaits all of us? A lifetime of possibilities, narrowed down to regret, perhaps, but some geniuses found peace. Goethe's light. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe is considered the greatest German writer in history. His Faust is a masterpiece about a man who sells his soul for knowledge. Knowledge has a price. On March 22, 1832, Goethe lay dying. The room was dim, and his final words have become legendary. More light, mehr Licht, mehr Licht. Light, was he asking his servant to open the shutters, or was he making a profound statement about human existence? The search for understanding, the darkness of death versus the light of knowledge. A man sees in the world what he carries in his heart. Historians have debated this for nearly 200 years. Some say he simply wanted literal light. Others believe Goethe, who spent his life seeking truth and beauty, was expressing his final philosophy. More light, more understanding, more truth. The darkness was coming, and he refused to accept it. Perhaps both interpretations are true. Perhaps that is the mark of true genius. Even their simplest words contain multitudes. And speaking of words that contain hidden depths, Beethoven's applause. Ludwig van Beethoven spent the last decade of his life completely deaf. He could not hear a single note of his greatest works, not the Ninth Symphony, not the late string quartets. Nothing. Silence was his prison. On March 26, 1827, a thunderstorm raged over Vienna. Beethoven had been unconscious for days. Then suddenly, lightning flashed. Thunder shook the windows, and Beethoven opened his eyes. He raised his fist toward the heavens. Then he fell back, gone. Gone. What did that gesture mean? Defiance against death, against God, against a universe that had stolen his hearing but not his music. I shall seize fate by the throat. It shall never wholly overcome me. Some witnesses said his final words were different. When a publisher sent him wine, Beethoven supposedly said, "Pity, pity, too late." Was he talking about the wine, or something deeper? A lifetime of suffering now ending. The music stopped, but the silence spoke volumes. We will never know. But there is poetry in a deaf composer dying during a thunderstorm. The heavens finally making a sound loud enough for him to feel. 10 geniuses, 10 final moments, 10 messages from the edge of existence. Death reveals all truths. What do their last words teach us? Some faced death with defiance. Voltaire mocked the church. Beethoven shook his fist at the sky. Others found unexpected peace. Newton saw himself as a child. Darwin felt no fear. In our final moments, we become who we truly are. But perhaps the most disturbing lesson is this. Even the greatest minds who ever lived died with unfinished business. Einstein's words were lost. Tesla's secrets remain classified. Da Vinci died believing he had failed. None of us know when our time will come, or what we will say when it does. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. The question is not what will your last words be. The question is, What are you doing with the words you have left? Now, the truth is never comfortable, but it is always worth knowing. History has more to teach us. Subscribe if you want to learn.